Hello and welcome to Toya's wonderful world of weird. Now we're coming up to Halloween. There are no rules, there are no boundaries, anything could happen. So this is for you from Toya's wonderful world of weird. I love short stories, as many of you know. I like them to be surreal and scary, and above all, short enough for you to capture before you go to work, before you go to bed, or in your tea break. This is The Witch's Finger, Feet and Toes. Michael knew how to find his sanity after a stressful week. Lying back in his rowing boat, bobbing on a calm, beautiful sea off the Jurassic coast, he was in his ideal of heaven. Land was still in sight and the tide had turned towards the shore. As usual, it will carry him in on his boat, and all he needs to do is row back out again and enjoy the water returning him to the shore. It was effortless. It was easy peasy. And after a week of dealing with prisoners in one of the UK's most overcrowded female prisons, he basked in his freedom and the silence. Beautiful golden light reflected against the waves, strobing across the boat. No gulls in the sky today, just a gentle, seductive breeze touching his skin. In the distance, the crumbling cliffs that link prehistoric Earth to present day made Michael wonder what still hides from the world beneath all that fractured chalk and rock. Idling through time suits him fine. A fishing rod keeps him company, and he casts it out into the gentle swell, waiting for the fish to bite. The late afternoon was the most beautiful part of the day, and as every worry and every thought exited his head, he just became part of the greater ocean. The only distraction being a light odour of sewerage, a modern-day problem he chose to ignore. And then suddenly, his boat jolts, and he looks around, realising he is moving. And he is moving away from the cliffs. Rapidly, he's being pulled further and further out to sea. And now his fishing line was dragging behind him, yet the tide was going inland. Thinking he was caught on some old netting attached to a large fish, or a buoy, or a lobster pot, or worse, a naval submarine departing for a night exercise, moving out to the greater ocean, Michael's heart leapt, and he jumped to attention, and then he froze, confused and repulsed at what he saw. There was a black, shriveled finger with a long fingernail hooked over the back of his boat. Securing his fishing line, he edged his way towards the stern and looked at it. The finger was twitching, like a spider waiting to skitter off. Michael bent closer for a really good look, and there was a green fungal slime covering the entire surface. The finger was so large, so large, it would have belonged to a human who was at least 8 foot tall. And the smell had followed the boat all day, and he realised it wasn't sewerage. A sickly smell of rotting flesh entered the space of the boat where the air seemed to stagnate. Michael was so confused. The finger was dragging the boat out to sea. It was as if the digit had an invisible body strong enough to drag the boat out against the tide. He tried to prise the finger off the boat all the time. Its joint issued large cracking noises from the knuckles, and the skin flaked off as if flicking at Michael, flicking away with superhuman strength, flicking Michael away. Go, go, go! Reaching for the oar, he bashed the wooden blade hard on the knuckles of the decomposing finger, and the finger suddenly snapped straight. It pointed at Michael, and it made a circle in the air. Then it leapt into the water and disappeared. Michael panicked to find his phone to try and film the evidence, but now there was none. He stood in silence, shaking, looking around the water as it swelled and it ebbed, and he was alone, or he thought he was. Then the scratching came from under the boat. It went around the sides of the boat and popped up over the rim, and Michael saw either side of the small vessel were two extremely large, big toes hooked over the edge, rocking the boat. Christ, he thought, this thing is playing with me. It was so surreal, it didn't occur to him to be frightened. After a few intense minutes of Michael questioning his sanity, he shifted into survival mode. He looked out for other boats in case they could come and save him, but he was alone. He noticed fish had started to circle the boat. Large shoals, huge basking sharks, even a bottlenose dolphin, a minke whale, and they all seemed to know and understand what was going on, all keeping a respectful distance. He could see them observing him, observing how he was reacting. Michael grabbed the oar again and started to smash it down on the rancid toes. They jumped out of the way into a comical dance as if dodging a bullet. This went on for an hour, and Michael was exhausted, and the oars were shattered. The light was fading, and he could no longer see land. The sun looked spectacular as it sunk to a half circle on the blue horizon. He had never seen it look so spectacular, and still those bloody toes were rocking the boat. He now felt seasick, and the stench was making him gag. Then everything changed. The finger was back, this time with the rest of its disembodied hand, and all 5 digits were pulling the back of the boat under the water, pulling it down. Michael backed up to the bow and watched the stern go down like the Titanic. Then he saw the culprit. At first he mistook what he saw for a gigantic rotting cuttlefish, ribbons of flesh flailing out deep down into the water like Sunday school ribbons in a young girl's hair. His eyes focused and clarity washed over him as he accepted this was very likely his end. What he saw was vaguely female, and it was enormous, 15 feet long, so many parts of her missing, held together by fraying tendons and torn flesh, her jaw locked in a silent scream. Fuck me, thought Michael, it's a fucking sea witch. Around him he caught the glimpse of dolphins. Now seals had joined them, the small whale, a huge basking shark, watching and entertained. As his body entered the frenzied sea, he prepared himself to die one way or another, being crushed, being eaten, being drowned. The sea witch enveloped him. Every tendril of her rotting carcass penetrated every orifice it could find. His nose, his anus, his ears, his nostrils, his eyes, his mouth, all began to split and fill with rotten, tortured flesh and tore him apart. And as his flesh tore and split, the fishes came in to feed. The witch's hair wrapped tenderly around each one of them and then moved tentatively around Michael's neck to asphyxiate him a little before pulling away. Michael's last thought was he was part of a sexual fantasy. As his consciousness flickered and faded, the disembodied finger ran her sharp nail down his naked chest, then reached in and gutted him like a fish. Happy Halloween, everybody.